Around the year 1900, market days were one of the most important days of the year in Sweden. Today I'm gonna travel back in time to experience a market day from the turn of the century. Skansen is a combined open-air museum and zoo in Stockholm, and every year they arrange a market, just like the ones you could find in the olden days of the year 1900. Market days were extremely important for the people of Sweden back then. It was a day when you could stock up on important household items and also sell your own handicraft to get some extra cash. And it was also a place where people had a lot of fun. How come market days became that important? These days you can find a lot of themed markets like Viking markets or medieval markets, but things were a lot different hundreds of years ago. These days we have a lot of markets we can attend, but up until the mid-1800s, markets were a lot more uncommon in Sweden. Trade was only allowed in the cities, but most people lived in the countryside. Once per year, rural areas were allowed to host a market, and understandably, that became the big event of the year. The market was where you met people from near and far, where you could find exciting things to buy, and where you heard news from all over the country. You could also find love at a market. A poem called the Vagabond Market tells of how a couple met at a market in the town of Vagabond, and then they spent the next 6 years saving up money so they could marry. They met again 6 years later at Vagabond Market, but there was a royal proclamation that all their saved up copper pennies were no longer valid means of payment. The poem ends on a sad note with, "Shall we meet again in 6 years, once more at Vagabond?" I think we need to focus on some happier things now. At the market, you could engage in games of all kinds. Most of the games were pretty violent or lewd compared to games you find at markets or fairs these days.
She's gonna take a run.
Wrestling and tug of war were common games at the market, and probably fistfights as well, but you won't see that here at Skansen. In fact, Astrid Lindgren, author of Pippi Långstocking, portrayed a fight at Vimmerby Market in her books about Emil of Lönneberga. Mankind has engaged in violent games for tens of thousands of years though, and it's only recently that we become a bit softer. One could argue that our modern civilization is the outlier compared to the normal, violent and lewd behavior we've had. You can also try some old types of food at this market, hand-cooked over an open fire, just like in the 1900s. Kålbulle means coal bun in English, and that might seem like a strange name for something that looks like a big pancake. The ingredients are water, flour, salt and pork, and it's easily cooked straight in a frying pan. Back in the 1900s, lumberjacks and charcoal burners had to spend a lot of time in the woods, and they didn't have access to a lot of ingredients. Kålbulle was something that was easy to cook with what's available, and it's very filling as well. It's believed that the name comes from burying the pan in coals to cook the kålbulle. Well, when they didn't use an open fire like now. Kålbulle is traditionally eaten with lingonberry jam, but I'm not very fond of it, so I'm just threatening it with lingonberry in the corner. Another dish a little bit similar to kålbulle is a kroppkaka. They were supposed to have it here somewhere, but I haven't found it so far. It's basically a Swedish dumpling made with potatoes, flour, pork and onions. There's also a variant up north in Sweden called pitepalt, which uses barley flour instead. Kroppkaka literally means body cake in English, but the etymology of the word kropp in that name is a little bit unclear. A Swedish etymological dictionary from 1922 just says that it's certainly related to the modern word body, but it's not quite the same meaning. And that's all the elaboration they give. Not exactly helpful. Either way, both of these dishes may be old peasant food, but they're really good. There's a lot of fun to be had at the market. Dancing and music and frolicking of all kinds. Music was often played on something called a durspel. Durspel looks like a tiny accordion, but it's actually a little bit more like a harmonica. It's diatonic and can only play songs in one key. It's basically a precursor to modern accordions. It wasn't just fun and games at these markets though. Farmers and artisans brought their wares and sold them. It was an important way to make some extra money. You could find everything from handmade rope to cheese to toys and just about everything else. There was a lot of textiles and dyes and arts and crafts in general. Winters are long in Sweden, and since you can't tend your farmlands, you need something else to do. Most farmer families spent their winters producing useful or not so useful things they could sell at the market. And yes, the winters were long and boring, and there was a lot of kids born in the fall as well. I'll let you figure out the connection there. Skansen is the oldest open-air museum in the world. It opened on October 11, 1891, more than 100 years ago. A man called Arthur Hazelius had a vision about a place where people could learn about the history and culture of Sweden, and of the nature as well. All of Sweden would be displayed at Skansen, from the north to the south. The autumn market we looked at today was arranged by a non-profit organization called Byalaget, the village community in English. They also arrange other events, and their mission is to spread knowledge about Swedish history and culture. The first autumn market was arranged here in 1991 as a gift to Skansen when it turned 100 years old. But the market turned out to be quite popular, so they continued to arrange them every year. By now it's been more than 30 years of these autumn markets at Skansen, and it's a well-known and well-loved tradition. That was a quick look at the autumn market at Skansen. I hope you enjoyed this look into life in Sweden at the turn of the 20th century. Like and subscribe, but most importantly, have a great day.
Det är nog poängen.